My name is Sergeant James Holloway, 3rd Battalion, 173rd Airborne Brigade, Afghanistan, summer of 2012. Out of all the things I saw during my 3 deployments in that dusty, unforgiving country, IEDs, ambushes, watching friends die, there's only one night I still can't explain. And it's not the kind of thing you talk about around a fire pit or at the VFW. It's something that sticks to you, follows you home, sleeps with you. We were stationed at a small fob outside coast, near the Pakistan border. That place was already strange, too quiet during the day, too active at night. Locals wouldn't go near the ridgelines to the east. They called it Shaitan Dara in Pashto, Devil's Gorge. It was supposed to be a routine patrol. 4 men, myself, Corporal Reyes, Private Lomax, and Specialist Givens. We'd been assigned to do a night recon sweep near the gorge to investigate a rumored supply route. Intel was vague, like always. Possibly a cave network, they said. Just check it out, snap a few photos, look for tracks. That kind of mission. We stepped off just after 2100. Sky was moonless, stars bright. The air was thick with the smell of dry earth and old cordite. The mountains loomed black against the sky like jagged teeth. Our night vision goggles flickered faint green over every rock, shrub, and crevice. The first hour went smooth. Reyes cracked dumb jokes, Lomax whispered his usual prayers, and Givens just kept quiet like always. We found no signs of foot traffic, no fresh tracks, not even the usual trash left behind by insurgents. It felt abandoned, dead. At 22:30, we reached the gorge. It looked like the earth had been split open with a giant axe, twisting rock formations, shadows that moved when they shouldn't, and a cold wind that smelled like wet ash. Reyes muttered, "This place feels wrong, man." I agreed. Still, we had a job to do. We began descending into the ravine, single file, weapons up. As we moved, my radio began to hiss. Static. Then brief bursts of something that sounded like whispering in a language I couldn't place. I asked if anyone else was getting interference. Givens replied, "Nothing here, Sarge." But his voice didn't sound convinced. Lomax fell back a bit, slowing down. I turned to check on him. "Something's watching us," he said quietly. I scanned the rocks. Nothing. But I felt it too. That weight in the air, like being underwater. The way sound gets muffled, how your heartbeat becomes louder than your footsteps. We continued another 100 meters, then found a narrow cave entrance. Just as command said. A low slit in the rock barely wide enough to crawl through. I signaled Reyes to approach. He knelt by the entrance, examining the ground with his flashlight on low red mode. Then he froze. "Yo, Sarge, you need to see this." I moved up beside him and looked down. Footprints. Dozens of them. Barefoot. Human-shaped, but wrong. The toes were too long. The arches too high, almost like they'd been running on the balls of their feet. And they weren't fresh. They were glowing faintly, almost as if recently burned into the earth. Reyes stepped back. Nope, not going in there." I wanted to agree, but my training overrode my instincts. We had to investigate. "Standard sweep," I said. 15 meters. If it's nothing, we fall back. Copy?" They nodded. We crawled in single file. I was first, Givens behind me, then Lomax and Reyes. The tunnel sloped downward, and the air grew colder with each foot forward. The walls were damp, like condensation was forming from nowhere. Then we heard it. Breathing. Not ours. Deeper. Slower. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. Like something huge was sleeping somewhere nearby. We all stopped. Nobody moved. The sound of slow, wet breathing echoed through the narrow passage. I turned back. Fall back. Quietly. As we began to retreat, Lomax let out a yelp. His boot had gotten snagged. Reyes reached back to help, when suddenly all our NVGs shorted out. Pitch black. No green hues, no outlines, just total, smothering dark. Then a sound, wet, scraping, like something large dragging itself across stone. We didn't wait to find out what it was. We scrambled backward through the tunnel, nearly blind, hearts pounding. Givens was right behind me, cursing under his breath, whispering something about the shadows moving. Once we emerged back into the gorge, the wind had picked up. But it wasn't natural. It carried voices. Faint, whispering, chanting maybe. And then we saw it. Something was standing at the top of the ravine, tall, silhouetted against the stars. Long limbs, no gear, just watching. "Laser on!" I barked. Reyes pointed his IR laser, and for half a second it illuminated the shape. But the shape didn't react. Instead, it vanished. I mean, vanished. One frame it was there. The next, gone, like a flicker in the film. We hiked back to base in silence. No one spoke. No jokes. No prayers. Back at the FOB, we didn't file a full report. We just said the cave was empty. No signs of activity. Nothing to note. But Givens started sleeping with his light on. Reyes refused to go near any dark room alone. Lomax got pulled off duty after he started having waking nightmares, screaming about something whispering under his skin. And me? I still have the footprints on my GoPro. I've never shown them to anyone. Sometimes I look at them to remind myself it was real, because I know what we saw wasn't Taliban. It wasn't men. It was something else. And I think it's still out there. I never expected to be stationed in an orchard, of all places. But after the initial months of relentless engagements, Command decided to rotate us to a quieter sector. The orchard was on the outskirts of a small farming village, so remote that it didn't even show up on the latest maps. We set up camp near a dilapidated farmhouse where overgrown apple trees stood like sentinels, their crooked branches clawing at the sky. On paper, it sounded like a break, a soft post, but it wasn't long before we realized something wasn't right with that place. It began with the silence. There were no birds, no rustling animals, just wind brushing through branches and the occasional creak of old wood from the farmhouse. At first, we chalked it up to the aftermath of shelling or the seasonal migration patterns. But when you spend enough time in a combat zone, you learn to recognize unnatural silence. It's the kind that makes your skin prickle before your brain even knows why. My fire team consisted of 4 men: myself, Corporal Jenkins, Private Ochoa, and our squad medic, Reese. Jenkins was the skeptic, gruff, a smart-ass, but rock solid in a firefight. Ochoa was young, devoutly religious, and always wore a rosary around his neck. Reese didn't talk much. He just watched, took everything in. Our orders were to secure the farmhouse and establish a forward listening post for monitoring enemy movement through the lowlands to the east. We set up camp by the barn. Jenkins took first watch. That night, I dreamed of apples. I know how that sounds, but it was the same dream all 4 nights we stayed there. Apples falling in slow motion, rotting before they hit the ground, and something under the soil shifting as they landed. I'd wake up with my heart racing, mouth dry, and Reese already sitting upright, like he hadn't slept at all. On the second night, something changed. It was Jenkins again on watch. I woke to the sound of boots on the floorboards above me in the farmhouse. Heavy steps, deliberate. I sat up, disoriented. "Jenkins?" I called out. No answer. I grabbed my rifle and stepped outside. Reese and Ochoa were still asleep in the barn. I approached the farmhouse slowly, flashlight off. The upper floor windows were dark, but I could still hear the footsteps. They were slow now, almost dragging. I reached the front porch. The door was half open, just like we left it earlier in the day. I called Jenkins's name again, louder, still no response. I was about to step inside when I heard whispering. Not in English, not in Ukrainian or Russian either. It was something older. A low, guttural murmur, as if two people were having a hushed argument in a language I'd never heard before. Then it stopped. Complete silence. I stood there, heartbeat hammering in my ears, until Jenkins stepped out of the shadows behind me. "You okay, LT?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. "Why are you out here with your weapon up?" I turned to him, stunned. "Where were you?" "In the orchard. Heard something moving out by the east side," he said. "Didn't see anything, but figured I'd circle back." I stared at him. I just heard footsteps upstairs. He looked at the house, then back at me. "Wasn't me. Maybe a raccoon." We both knew it wasn't a raccoon. The next day, Ochoa found something buried near the old well. It was a small wooden idol, carved crudely, weather-worn, but still intact. It looked vaguely human, but the proportions were wrong. Arms too long, head too narrow, mouth open in a wide, unnatural grin. Reese took one look at it and told Ochoa to put it back exactly where he found it. "Why?" Ochoa asked. "It's just a carving." "It's not for us," Reese muttered. That night, the whispering came back. Only this time, all of us heard it. It started as a hum, low and rhythmic, like a chant. Then came the voices, dozens of them. Male, female, old, young, layered over each other, speaking in that same incomprehensible language. We huddled in the barn with our rifles, night vision goggles on, waiting for something, anything, to make sense. Then Ochoa screamed. We found him just outside the orchard's edge, kneeling in the dirt, mumbling prayers with blood trickling from his nose. His rosary was clenched so tightly in his hand that the beads had broken and cut into his palm. He didn't remember how he got there. "I saw something," he kept repeating. "In the trees." "What did you see?" I asked. "Eyes," he said. "No body. Just eyes. Dozens of them, hanging in the air like fruit." That night we all stayed up. No one slept. Around 3 a.m., the whispering stopped. Reese stood up suddenly and looked toward the orchard. "Something's coming," he said. We aimed our rifles toward the tree line. At first, there was nothing. Then we saw it. A figure stepped out from the trees, tall, impossibly thin, limbs too long. Its skin looked grayish, like bark soaked in blood. Its face was featureless, except for the mouth, wide and smiling. It didn't walk. It glided, almost like it wasn't touching the ground. Reese raised his weapon, but didn't fire. "We leave now," he said. "Grab what you can. We're not staying till sunrise." We didn't argue. We left everything but our rifles and medkits, moving quietly but quickly toward the extraction point 3 clicks west. As we moved through the trees, I turned once and looked back. It was watching us, from between 2 apple trees, grinning. We never reported the incident officially, just marked the area as unsafe for reoccupation due to possible IEDs. But I know what I saw. So did Jenkins. So did Reese. Ochoa never talked again. Not about the orchard. Months later, Jenkins sent me a message. I see it in my dreams sometimes. Still smiling, still waiting. Some places are cursed by the living, others are haunted by something older. Winter in Donetsk is not like the winters back home. It's not just the cold, though the cold alone is enough to snap your fingers off if you're careless. It's the silence, the heavy kind that presses on your chest, the kind that muffles your thoughts. During winter ops, we learned to listen for things no louder than a breath, to scan a horizon that vanished in the snow like it was made of smoke. We had been tasked with holding a railway station, abandoned, of course, just west of the city. The place looked like a ghost had coughed it up, shattered windows, scorched timbers, and rusted rail lines leading nowhere. But it was strategically placed for our side to monitor vehicle movements coming from the northern routes. They dropped us in by nightfall, 4-man team, limited visibility, and snow already falling sideways. My team this time was different. The only familiar face was Murphy, a wiry redhead from Boston with a dark sense of humor and a superstition for every occasion. The other 2 were new. Vasya, our local translator with military training, and Kowalski, a young sniper who didn't talk unless it was absolutely necessary. All good men, all silent as stone. The station itself was surrounded by open field and sparse woodland. We took shelter in what remained of the office building, 2 floors of cracked concrete, glass shards, and scorched office furniture. We boarded up the lower windows, set up thermal optics on the roof, and ran checks on the perimeter. First 2 nights were uneventful. Then the temperature dropped, and the dreams started. Not just for me, Murphy too. He mentioned it first. Said he dreamed of a man standing outside the station at night, not moving, not speaking, just standing. "He's wearing our uniform," Murphy said, fidgeting with his gloves. "Except it's all wrong. Too old. The boots, not even NATO issue, like something out of another time." I asked him what the guy was doing in the dream. "Just watching me, smiling." That night, I dreamed the same thing. Only in mine, the man wasn't smiling. His face was frozen in agony, mouth open, like he was screaming, but there was no sound. I chalked it up to stress. We'd all been operating under constant threat for months. The mind does strange things in isolation. But things got worse. On the 4th night, Vasya was posted on the rooftop. I relieved him at 0300, and I found him sitting against the wall, staring into the dark. "You good?" I asked. He didn't look at me, just nodded slowly. I stepped over to the edge of the roof, scanning with thermals. Nothing but snow, dead trees. The horizon blurred with white noise. Then I saw him, just like in the dream. A man, roughly 50 meters out, standing perfectly still in the snow, staring at the station. Wearing an old winter uniform, Soviet maybe, except his helmet was shattered, and the side of his face looked like it had been eaten away by frostbite or worse. "Contact. 50 meters," I whispered. Thermal confirmed. Motionless. Murphy joined me with his scope. "I see him too," he muttered. Vasya still hadn't moved. Kowalski checked the door and perimeter, no tracks. We were the only ones who had entered that sector in days. I watched the figure for nearly 10 minutes. It never moved, no breath, no twitch, just standing there. Then he vanished. Not walked away. Vanished. Like a curtain had been pulled across him. Vasya didn't speak the rest of the night. At dawn, he came to me and said, "I think he wants something. I saw him in my village once, long ago. Thought it was a ghost story, but he followed us here." I asked him what he meant. "He appears in villages that have seen massacres," he said. "They call him the Frozen Man. Some say he's a soldier who refused to die. Others think he's punishment." I thought he was cracking. We all were. But Murphy said something that stuck with me. What if this whole war is feeding something? That night, the power went out. Our generator, brand new, just died. Batteries fried. Even backup radios wouldn't power on. Everything went silent. No wind, no snow, just stillness. We gathered on the ground floor with rifles drawn, candles lit. Murphy paced. Vasya sat with his back to the wall, muttering a prayer. Kowalski stared out the window. Then, faintly, we heard it. Boots, heavy ones, crunching across the ice just outside. 1, 2, 3. We raised our rifles. The steps circled the building slowly. No shadows, no voice, just walking. And then, knocking. 3 knocks on the front door. I aimed my rifle at it. "Do not open that door," I whispered. No one moved. Then the knocking came again, but this time from the 2nd floor, then from the roof. We were surrounded. Murphy lost it. "I'm not dying like this," he said, running for the stairs. I tried to stop him, but by the time I got there, he was already on the roof, rifle raised. I followed. He stood in the middle of the snow-covered rooftop, breathing hard, scanning the dark. "He's here. I know he's here," he whispered. And then I saw them. Not one, but many. Figures emerging from the tree line, all wearing mismatched uniforms, some from World War II, others modern, even civilian clothes torn from bombed-out ruins. Their skin was pale, greyish, faces expressionless, all walking slowly toward the station. I shouted for Murphy to get down. He didn't move. One of the figures came within 20 meters, and I could finally see its eyes, empty sockets, not black, not hollow, just absent. Murphy raised his rifle. "Don't shoot!" I yelled, but it was too late. The crack of the gunshot echoed into the night like a scream. The figure dropped. The others kept walking. Then, as quickly as they came, they stopped. Each of them slowly turned and vanished. Gone. Like smoke in the wind. We searched for the body Murphy had dropped. Nothing. No blood. No corpse. No impact site. Nothing. Just snow. The rest of the night, we took shifts, backs to the wall. I tried radioing command again at dawn. The signal was back, but scrambled, only static. At 0900 hours, our relief unit arrived. We didn't tell them everything. Just that Murphy had fired at what he believed was a scout and that we had to hold perimeter till exfil. I've since left that region, but I still dream of the frozen man. Not just standing outside now. Sometimes he's inside, watching, waiting, like he's still unfinished with us. They say war leaves a mark on you. What they don't say is that some of those marks don't fade. Some of them fester. Others follow. It's been over a year since the events at the railway station. I've rotated back home, discharged honorably, medals in a drawer, therapy sessions scheduled and missed. Most nights, I sleep on the couch with the TV on low, not because I like the shows, but because silence feels like snow again. I still keep in touch with Murphy. Or rather, I try to. He made it out, but not whole. He doesn't talk about the frozen man, or the night we saw them, the ghosts, or whatever they were. He just says, "It was cold. Too cold." And then he changes the subject. Vasya returned to his family in Lviv. He sent me one message before disappearing. He followed me home. I think he's not done yet. I never heard from him again. Kowalski, he died 2 months later during a recon in Bakhmut. They said it was artillery. But when I talked to the medic who found him, he said Kowalski was frozen stiff, his body temperature far below what made sense, even for the weather. No blood, no blast marks, just frozen. I tried to forget. I really did. Until last week. I was walking home from a night shift. Same route as always. Quiet street, dim lights, early autumn chill. And I saw him, standing at the corner. Same uniform, same shattered helmet, same half-frozen face. The frozen man. Only this time, he didn't vanish. He looked right at me and smiled. I froze in my tracks. My breath caught. He didn't move, just watched, like he always had. Except now, we weren't in the war zone. We were in a suburban street in Pennsylvania, and he was here. I blinked. He was gone. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I looked up every reference I could find. Ghost soldiers, apparitions in uniform, folklore from Eastern Europe. Nothing described what we saw exactly, but one passage stuck with me. From an old Ukrainian veteran's diary during World War II. He appears where the dead are forgotten, where screams go unheard. He walks not to haunt, but to remind. The ice remembers what fire consumes. I don't know if the frozen man is a ghost, a curse, a hallucination, or something else. But I believe now that he's not tied to a battlefield. He's tied to memory, to us, to the trauma we carry like unburied bones. And maybe he's not one man at all. Maybe he's all of them. The ones who were left behind, whose names were never written on memorials, whose families never got closure. Maybe war itself made him, shaped him out of frost and grief and silence. All I know is this. I saw something. We all did. And whatever it was, it doesn't stay in Ukraine. It stays in us. Postscript. If you're listening to this and you've served, whether it was in Ukraine, Iraq, Afghanistan, or anywhere else, and you've seen something you couldn't explain, you're not alone. Some scars you can show. Others are invisible, but they still bleed. I'm not telling this story for sympathy. I'm telling it because silence is what feeds the cold, and if we don't speak of it, it grows stronger, louder, colder. To the ones we lost, and the ones still haunted, I remember you. We all do. And maybe, just maybe, so does he.